BMAX audio adventure, Friday recap. I got it right this week. I'm going to try edit this as little as possible because I'm tired, to be honest. It was a long week of training. I had my first experience rolling with a D1 wrestler. It was a fun roll, but he double-legged me from one side of the mats to the other. Matt Hughes style, almost. He was a really nice guy, though. What else? What else we got going on here? We got Fabiana George visiting. She's competing on Quintet in 2 weeks. So I've been training with her too. And this podcast is going to be about a 10 Planet quote that I like. That Amir Allam, a black belt in 10 Planet, was the original guy who said it. But we're going to use some old podcast footage of Brandon. Footage? Audio? You know what I mean. I'm not editing that out. Here it is.
Amir Allam is a 10th Planet black belt. It's a friend of mine. And I think I might have been a blue belt at this time. Anyway, I was on Eddie's forum at 10th Planet. I think it was 10thplanetjj.com. It might have been the old forum, actually. I think it was, now that I think about it. But I think I was a blue belt. And there was a discussion going on the forum. And, you know, it was, this guy was saying, there was a talk about the lockdown. You know, the lockdown half guard. And this guy was saying that the lockdown sucks. And then, you know, the 10th Planet guys were coming in being like, bro, the lockdown's the only half guard I play. And then it started to like escalate into a thing that was like 10th Planet does it this way. And well, BJJ, traditional BJJ does it this way. Oh yeah, well you're a doo-doo head. Well, you're a doo-doo head. And then here comes Amir with, as usual, a nugget of pure joy and wisdom. And here's what he said. The lockdown is not the 10th Planet gospel. An open mind is the 10th Planet gospel.
I can't remember if I seen that quote as it was happening on the forum back when I was active on that forum, or I'm pretty sure Brandon had the same quote in his signature that would display under all of his posts. Maybe I remember from there, but I love that quote. And I love the lockdown, but I love that quote. And I remember when I first got into MMA, my father was always a huge fan of Bruce Lee growing up. So when I first started training, he started introducing me to movies I hadn't seen and just some bit of Bruce Lee knowledge that I was not aware about. I'm not editing that last part out as much as I want to, but here we are. So I really like Bruce Lee's open-minded approach. He studied all kinds of arts, and as much as some people like to say, oh, he wouldn't last in modern MMA, I don't care. It's a huge part of why I got into 10 Planet. I was accidentally introduced to 10 Planet, but one of the huge reasons I really loved 10 Planet is because the approach was so similar to the use what is useful and discard what isn't philosophy that Bruce Lee preached about.
And that's exactly what brought me into the 10th Planet fold. It wasn't Eddie Bravo, and it sure wasn't weed. You know what I mean? It wasn't the rubber guard. It wasn't lockdown. It was Eddie's approach to solving problems. It's a very important thing. You know, I'm a big fan of reading, studying, listening to, observing people, things, books that I have a strong disagreement with. I don't think it's ultra important to study and learn things that you like from people that you already agree with. Like, you already think that, you already know that. Like, I don't want to spend my time diving deeper into that necessarily. I don't think that's wrong. Like, and I definitely do that, of course. It's important too. But it's way more important to me to open up and find something that I disagree with. Even if I never come around to that way of thinking, at least I've been exposed to that style of thinking, to that new idea. And that's what makes the 10th Planet system so great to me, is that the whole thing was founded on this.
Regardless of how you feel about Eddie Bravo, I'm a big fan of Eddie Bravo. I always have been. and I know he says some crazy things from time to time, but I think of Eddie as the ultimate skeptic, and I think being a skeptic is important for the growth of jiu-jitsu. I don't think you should ever get to the point where you're just like, all right, our team is clearly the best, that's where we're at, this is what we got to keep working on, and then accept that everything that your team is doing is 100% the right way, because someone out there is going to have a slightly better butterfly sweep. Someone out there is going to have a slightly better ankle lock finish. There's always going to be someone who can beat you up in some aspect. And I just think the skeptic side of Eddie Bravo is one of the big reasons that jiu-jitsu and 10 Planet has grown to where it is today. I also recommend, completely irrelevant to this, but I recommend checking out, there's a video on YouTube. That's how we'd say it in Ireland. I think it's called The Magic of Skepticism. It's a video of an interview with Penn and Teller, and definitely worth a listen. I think everyone should go listen to that as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, because if you stop listening to this podcast, you won't hear all of the magical stuff that happens at the end. Back to Brandon.
The one thing that kept me, free to think was my mom was always telling me, think for yourself. You have to think for yourself. You can't take this guy's word for it. And she wasn't telling me, to rebel against authority all the time. But what she was telling me is that just because this person sits in authority, or just because this person is intelligent, it doesn't mean that they know everything. And it doesn't mean that they know you and know your heart and know your mind. So I want you guys to really open your mind this week. And let's just keep it in the realm of jiu-jitsu. Open your mind this week to new ideas.
For my first few years of training, it was heavily lockdown, rubber guard, leg lock based. A lot of bottom game. And my top game suffered. I didn't have much passing. I didn't have any passing, really. Maybe some stuff that was in the 10 Planet warm-ups, but I really didn't have a huge amount of passing in my personal game that I was practicing regularly. And that went on for, I'd say, maybe 5 years. And then I went to Darragh O'Connell's gym, East Coast Jiu-Jitsu in Dublin, Monkstown in Dublin, south of Dublin. I highly recommend, if you are ever in Ireland and looking to train, get out there if you want some of the top training you're going to find in Ireland. But Darragh was teaching a passing sequence that basically gave us an option to knee cut on one side or go into the other side when they start bringing their knee shield in. And at first I felt like Bambi. Even in the few weeks after it, I was feeling like Bambi, just trying to pass people all the time. But I just decided to commit to passing. I stopped doing leg locks. I stopped doing lockdown and rubber guard, because if I was doing them, that meant that I was on bottom and I wasn't doing what I wanted to practice. And now passing is my favorite thing. I used to think lockdown was my favorite thing. I used to think rubber guard was my favorite thing. Now passing is my favorite thing. I will still work on my rubber guard and lockdown, but I really love passing and choking. I went from someone who just leg locked and maybe I'd finish like a dead orchard or arm locks off of rubber guard stuff, but primarily it was leg locks for a while. And then I completely stopped doing leg locks for probably over a year, maybe longer. I'm not really sure. I've started doing them again recently, but I became obsessed with passing and that became my favorite thing. So my point is, I used to think that lockdown, rubber guard, leg locks were a way of life, and those were the tricks that were going to beat everyone. But then I started to figure out that jiu-jitsu goes a bit deeper than just a few tricks here and there. You might catch some good guys with a trick, but it's not the way to consistently beat them and out-jiu-jitsu them. And I'm not saying that rubber guard, lockdown, leg locks are just tricks. There's deep systems to each of those as well. It was just my mindset back then is that I was constantly seeking the next trick, the next trick, the next trick. But that's just my silly old purple belt opinion. That was pretty good, wasn't it? Let us know how good that attempt at the Southern accent was. I think it was pretty good. Oh, terrible. Back to Brandon.
Hey, man, when I'm caught in the butterfly guard, I usually do this. Oh, yeah? Well, this week, when you're caught in the butterfly guard, do the opposite. You know, I'm a big fan of the lockdown. Oh, yeah? Well, this week, don't be a fan of the lockdown. Let's just see what happens when we open our minds to new experiences, new ways. And what you're going to find, and a lot of you guys know this already. I'm preaching to the choir, I'm sure. But what you're going to find is that you're going to get a complete perspective shift and a new way to see the world. The lockdown is not the 10th planet gospel. An open mind is the 10th planet gospel.
That's all we got for today, folks. I'm Brandon McCatherine. Toehold. If only there was a way to get a pair of free flip-flops just randomly sent out to me by some company. Perhaps a company that specialize in making customized, personalized leather flip-flops. You know, I think I know the company. Toehold at toe_HOLD. I always get really pumped up when I start doing these ads now. I'm probably more pumped up now than I was for the rest of the podcast. I should do these ads at the start. Where was I? Toehold. Those guys. So, if you screenshot the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to it on, Spreaker, iTunes, whatever. I always say whatever. I don't know what else this is on, really, to be honest. I don't know. Whatever you're listening to it on, screenshot it and put it as your Instagram story and tag at toe_hold and tag at brandonmc.ninja, and you have a chance to win a pair of free flip-flops. Free flip-flops. If you don't want to do that, for whatever reason, you crazy person, DM Toehold. Tell them you heard about them on the podcast. And our boy AG might be nice enough to give you a discount on some of the other gear. They have some really nice rash guards. They have a really nice rash guard right now. Should I cut that out? That shows a lack of knowledge in the products. Sorry, boys. It's staying in. But they have hats. They have flip-flops. They have t-shirts. Today, I just seen Fabiana George has a goddamn Toehold backpack. That was way too redneck. Was that offensive? Are you offended? I don't really care. Bye.